this is Faith. I'm recording on behalf of Intro to Philosophy, and I'm going to ask 2 questions from his book. So my first one is on the meaning of life. And I found this chapter to be really interesting because I've always wondered about this. Well, both of my questions I've really wondered about. The meaning of life has always been kind of like a showstopper for me. Like, I sat and I really thought about this after I read the chapter because it brings to light such a question that rings through my mind constantly. Like, the first question, why does it matter if life doesn't matter? And he goes on to ask, like, why does it matter that you're here? Or why does it matter if you make a difference or you don't? Because you're going to die either way. And that brings me to my next question, is whether death is good or bad, but we'll get to that later. So the first one, I kind of interpreted it as, well, his chapter interpreted it as how life is meaningless unless you can prove your worth. But I don't believe that that's exactly true, because if life was meaningless and we're not meant to do something with it, then why would we be here in the first place? Like, we have a purpose in life just like we have a purpose in every day, and making it how we want it, and how we live is the way that we make it. Like, if we're not happy, then we need to find what's making us upset or angry, or what we need to do to make ourselves happy. Like, there's always something in every day that we can do to make it better. And I think that's the meaning, because without us growing, and without us thinking, and without us being the person that we're meant to be, or growing to the person that we're meant to be, then I don't know if there really is a meaning. But if you're thinking about the depressive way in saying that you living your life is basically not going to amount to anything because you're not going to leave a mark, but that's not really a good argument, because we touch people's lives every single day without even knowing half the time. Like, some of the time, I remember I was on TV or something the other day, and a woman came up to me and she said, I saw the dog that you were on TV with, and I want to adopt him. Like, I lost my dog, and it hurt how he sat there and he looked at the camera, and I had no idea. Like, I had affected this lady. She started crying right in front of me because she said that her dog looked exactly like him, and that it was really an eye-opening moment, because she saw, like, something in that moment that just clicked me to that dog. And even, like, things like that out of nowhere that we don't even think about make us have an effect on someone. Or even past traumas or past things that we've done in our lives. Like, even if we're the bad person in someone's story, then we are still making an impact, and we're helping that person grow. Just as any individual is going to grow in their lifetime. And I think that's really kind of helping our goals in life and our meaning, because if we're not growing and if we're not affecting people's lives, then I really don't think that life has that meaning that we are intended to have. But then again, even if there are people in the hospital bed and they're not doing something, they're still affecting people's lives. They're still having the nurses take care of them. They're still having their families and their friends visit them. There's still, everything we do just affects someone in some way, and we're all connected. And if we all didn't survive, or if we all weren't here together on this earth, then I think that life would be meaningless, because there would be nothing but nature. But even then, everything in nature is connected, so there has to be some meaning. I mean, I believe that there is. My next question on death, if it's good or bad, I think this ties really well into the meaning of life, because every death, I believe, brings some sort of growth, or some sort of, I don't want to say another negative word, but some sort of change in your life that makes you stronger, makes you grow, makes you resilient, makes you have that experience that you can expect, like what to do at a funeral, or what to say, or what to feel, or kind of empathize for another person. Like, I think that death can be something that brings people together, but I think that also is so very tragic at some points that it is shown as a negative thing, and that gives it negative connotations. Like, everyone thinks of death as the worst thing possible, but what if something is suffering so much that the only thing that would be humanely possible is death? Like, there's an animal at the shelter. I work at the animal shelter, and there's a dog at the shelter that he's 14 years old. He's a golden retriever. He can't hear anything. He can't really see that much, and he has a benign tumor on his vocal cords, and there's also a growth in his nasal passages. And we took him to the vet the other day, and we just found all this out, and we found that it was causing him a lot of discomfort, and he's probably in a lot of pain, and he wheezes when he breathes. So in this instance, it would be more humane for us to let him go than to keep prolonging his suffering, because he does act happy. He eats, he does all this, but we know that he's in pain just by the way he looks, because his eyes are not there like I'm sure they used to be, and the owner did not take care of him like they should have, and that is terrible. That is a bad thing, but at the same time, this dog has already affected the people that have been in his life, and they have loved him, I'm sure, and he has gotten the best treatment that he can. So maybe this ending of life isn't so bad, just like certain people in their last length of dementia or Alzheimer's. My grandma was in the Alzheimer's unit for about 7 years, and she was suffering for about 8, 9, and her last week of, I wouldn't even call it life, was tragic. It was terrible to watch, and I don't believe that she would want us to keep her like that. So I think that some things are meant to happen, and they're meant to make people grow. So I think that about ties it up, and thank you for listening to my inner monologue on different contributions to whether life is meaningless or whether death is good or bad.